It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Time to talk homeschooling. So amidst, obviously, the matrix writing their final exams right now, we are discussing the idea of homeschooling this morning. Now, homeschooling is becoming more popular every day as parents move away from the conventional forms of education. Additionally, South Africa has been seeing significant growth in online and remote learning education as well, with private schools and independent groups launching various platforms to educate learners and, I suppose, educate parents along the way. Today, we discuss homeschooling. Is it for you? We'd love to hear from you. And of course, we've got a panel to chat about this. And our panel this morning consists of mommy model Tia Alexander, as well as dance teacher Caitlin Liggett, whose son JJ is being homeschooled following the Cambridge curriculum, which I'm keen to find out a bit more about. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know an early start. Isn't the whole point of homeschooling not to get up at this time and brave the morning traffic? But great to have you here. And we'd love to have your thoughts as well. If you are going through this process yourself, please drop us a voice note. Any insights would be wonderful. 063-408-8863 is the number to use. Now, remember that number. I didn't even have to be homeschooled for that. Tia, let's get a bit of background, because there is generally a supporting reason why we choose this route. Talk us through your journey, obviously coming from the US to South Africa. Why the motivation now to teach your son from home?
I mean, I think it's pretty clear for me. I love to show him the world. You know, I think not every parent gets to travel, so I think for me it's something that I'm allowed to expand on his education. I get to show him through people, through cultures, through experience.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing for homeschooling is experience, understanding life versus just understanding the books.
Did it take a shift within you? Or was this just the way you're wired? Was this always on the cards? Or was there a moment or something that kind of flicked that switch?
Absolutely. I think, you know, when you start traveling with your child, especially watching them in the school system, and you're in America in this rat race, you know, you're going from traffic to school to getting them ready for school the next day, and you miss the moments, the experience, you know, you're just rushing. And I think that there's a lot to learn from that for them and for ourselves. And when I was traveling with him, I was like, wow, he's learning so much more from cultures, from just exposure, just...
From the person themselves?
Yes, yes. And you start to see them evolve differently. So
starting with the University of Life and you're working backwards towards school. I love that. No, I really do get that. I think our job opens up so many experiences to us, and it's amazing how much your perception shifts through that. Caitlin, slightly different journey for you. So JJ, your son, was at Bloberg Ridge, then moved to a college school for grade 5 and 6, and then you decided to make the shift to go all in. Why that progression? What was it about your journey that led you to this point?
For me, education is obviously important, but what's very, very important for me is the social and emotional side of, you know, exposing the child to that environment. And, you know, depending on the child, homeschool can work for them or not work for them, but grade 7 was the loop into high school. So for me, I wanted to make sure that, you know, he was covered with confidence and socially and still able to focus on his goals, which was the sports, which he now can do early training, lunchtime, because that is his goal, to be a professional soccer player, but as well as focus with his education in the morning in a controlled environment and not have, you know, the pressures of the classroom stress and anxiety, You
said a word there, control.
Yes.
And it does feel like, as a parent, my kids are quite young at this stage, but I after getting my son into a school with a massive tradition and this whole history, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, is that still going to be a thing? Are schools going to even exist in a couple of years because of how differently we are seeing the world right now and the custodians of that information that we are passing over? But there are a couple of cultural elements that I think drive this as well. You talk about safety. I would imagine the social pressures within a school environment are massive. How hectic is that in the US? How different or similar is schooling in South Africa and the US? Because we obviously hear only the horror stories, sadly, coming out of the US when it comes to schools. That's the reality. How different is the culture, or is it similar?
I think the main key that you know, is safety. You do hear all the horror stories from America, but you're also learning how they are learning from each other in the classes. And sometimes that always isn't the greatest because then they've got issues from their families and their own environment. And sometimes when they collect some of those baggage.
It's this cross-pollination.
Yes,
for
yes.
sure.
And maybe that's all across the world, but in America, I find that there's, you know, we've got our political issues, our entitlement, our, you know, our selfishness, things that have, you know, you want to shift in a child, but it's very hard when you're in the system.
Yeah.
The system of the school, you know, the parents, or not just the parents, but the teachers, you know, and the kids and their
peers.
parents, their peers, and they're learning from their parents. So whatever they're learning from their parents, and they're arguing about politics and what's going on in fear of, oh, you know, all these, you know, schools are getting shut. I mean, all these things that you don't want your kid to have to experience, you know.
Just want them to be a child for as long as possible.
Yes.
Just please.
And to be honest, you know, I was really, really proud of myself for taking him out of school before the pandemic. And I think the pandemic opened up many eyes, but I had done it well before.
You were
and
future-proofed,
I was future-proof. And for me, it meant a lot because then I also saw how he didn't have to go with the pandemic system, the masks in the schools. Not to say that masks aren't okay, but it really kind of held them back and put them in a space of fear. And they couldn't talk to each other, engage. And that I felt people were losing a lot of. How to engage with each other, how to, you know, have that eye contact and not look at someone really weird or judge them and say, oh my gosh, they coughed. I mean, for me, he didn't have to deal with that. He was able to kind of have his free mind, his own free thoughts, and not have the other kids saying, oh, you know.
I'd love to do a psychological study to see what his brain looks like compared to other kids who have gone through that process, because I think we all changed. It was a universal gateway that we all kind of had to go through. So I love the way that you think about that, and it's an empowering thing. Let's get to basics now, the practicalities of going through this. What does a normal day look like in your household in terms of homeschooling? Obviously, the sport, you say, is a major thing.
Yes, no, I mean, okay, great that we don't have to face the hectic traffic, you know, in the mornings. But it's nice that JJ can take things in his stride, have a good breakfast, get his books and, you know, laptop and get
do it
that...
in his way.
In his way, ask questions, in his time, do research, further research, which just helps him, you know, have a better understanding on the subjects that he wants to focus on.
I love it. Do it his way. We're going to continue really, really interesting discussion this morning. I think a lot of us are trying to reframe the way we see the world, but through this process, we want to show our children the way forward as well. And it's a very different world that we are handing over to them or that they are creating for themselves around us. And we're going to continue our homeschooling chat. We'd love to hear from you. 06340888863. If you've got any insights, please drop us a voice note.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for rejoining a very important and really interesting conversation, certainly in light of the shifts we've seen in education over the last couple of years. Now, in light of matric exam season, we are discussing homeschooling right now. A lot of people have made the shift. Is it for you? And we've got our panel of super moms consisting of mommy model Tia Alexander, as well as dance teacher Caitlin Liggett. And we encourage your participation as well. Please share in the discussion if you've got any insights, personal experiences. Please send us those details, 06340888863, or you can just drop us a line on social media. Tia, let's talk about the pluses here, because there is a reason why you've continued on this course. Clearly, there are some challenges, and we'll get into that as well. But what has been the real benefit for you? What have you enjoyed the most about approaching it this way?
Building a stronger relationship. Our relationship, I think we know each other way better than when he was in grade school. Now, when he was in grade school, I saw the shifts. The shifts were a little bit up and down so much that it disconnected us from understanding, okay, this is right and this is wrong. Now, they were teachable moments, but now we're on a flow and he can trust me. And that's the biggest thing, is trust in the relationship. Being able to know that I'm guiding you, I'm teaching you, I'm showing you. Now you can understand and respect what I'm saying versus what someone else told you and said, no, but mommy, that, and challenging you on that. Because, you know, even I'm hearing how some teachers are saying, oh, sugar is healthy. And it's like, I think you might have directed that wrong. Sugar cane, but you know, there's certain things that in order for me to help him understand, I can guide through the questions, through the misunderstandings, and we can learn from them.
So you're a control freak is basically what you're
No, I'm
control freak.
not.
That's okay, no, we get it. No, I get it. Consistency. Consistency. I mean, there have been so many studies on how a single mom, and I suppose this is the South African narrative, the consistency of the parenting of a single mom is so much healthier than a dual message from a supposedly collective home with two parents. And we understand this, that consistency is absolutely vital. So I get that notion. Every day is great because you get the time, it's wonderful, but it's all on you. How do you deal with that pressure? What are some of the setbacks or the challenges in homeschooling?
Sure. I suppose it's making sure that the tasks are complete, you know, because they might take it too much in their stride, and then submitting, you know, those assessments, and maybe being a bit too relaxed at home. But again, it all balances out eventually.
But you're enjoying life together. So there's a sense of understanding that things don't have to be a rush. It doesn't have to be, you know, tick, 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 tick every day. It's like take things with the flow, and then you start to think a little more clear.
And I really like what you said, you know, it builds the bond closer to the child, because especially with the influences as they grow up at school and from others, you know, we're at least there to guide them.
I can literally tell who my son's been spending time with at creche based on how he behaves, how he talks, his tonation. He broke my heart. I'm getting a little emotional. But he broke my heart the other day asking me to stop telling him to do things quickly. Because I'm constantly telling him, come on, let's go, quick, quick, come on, let's do it. Come on, quick, quick, let's do it. Because we've got a schedule. We're always, and with two of them, then it becomes a juggling act in that sense. And then I'm tag teaming with my wife, and it's this constant rotation in this production line. I understand that. That being said, life still happens. We've got to work, we've got to build an ecosystem around this idea that actually works. How do you do that? What lifestyle changes have you had to make, or has it just been finding your flow? How have you built the right kind of balance?
You do find your flow, but you definitely need to establish structure. I think structure comes in different forms. It's never going to look the same. You can have it one way and then it shifts another time. So it's okay, and that's how life works, and it's becoming adaptable to what life offers. So, you know, during this course period, maybe even season, you know, festive season, you know, we're a little bit more, okay, let's get these things done, so then when festive season happens, we don't have anything else to worry about. But even with the daily tasks, I can build his routine on my routine. I can write things down, and now he has to be responsible of his own responsibilities. And that's the best thing about independent study, is because you have to be willing to pour into them and give them some of the life lessons that you've learned and be able to help them structure through that. But when you're in school, you don't get to. There's a system. You're just throwing over everything, and then they come home with stuff, and you're like, where did you get that from? You know, and you're just questioning all these things. Now you have to break these habits versus build them and help them understand why they're doing something and the way they're doing it.
And never mind the actual education itself. I'm thinking back to all those times where I was so disenchanted because our educational system just changed overnight as our political discourse changed. And suddenly you're like, oh, wow, okay, so that history was wrong, this history's right, all right. I'm starting to feel like I'm the guy who was left on Earth while, like, they went to, like, Avatar or something where they... It's just such an interesting way of reframing it. I think that's the important thing here. It's not one versus the other. It's just looking at it through a different lens, possibly one that really helps your child. We're going to bring the lads in just a moment to get their perspective. If you've got a perspective to share, please do. 063-408-8863. Drop us a voice note.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back as we wrap up our wonderful conversation, a very important conversation on online or homeschooling. Is it for you? And we've got a wonderful panel of super moms consisting of mommy model Tia Alexander, as well as dance teacher Caitlin Liggett. And of course, now the boys have joined us as well. Alexander and JJ are also on the couch, and we want you guys to weigh in. Please send us a voice note if you have a particular perspective to share with us. In fact, we're going to start there right now. Avril had something to air this morning. Let's hear from her.
I'm all for homeschooling because the kids are more safer at home and they can be creative in their own very way. from April.
Thank you so much for that. Safety, all about you. You can do it in your own way. I love that. Let's hear from Sam.
Expresso, Sammy here. So glad this question came up. Very for homeschooling, as today's schools are not like our schools used to be, eh? There's a lot of politics in schools today. I'm actually sitting with a big pandemic with the school at the moment with my eldest son. Yeah, so homeschooling to me is hundreds.
Hundreds. What?
I would prefer homeschooling and much more benefits, eh? With homeschooling than with normal government schooling or even private schooling.
Completely. It is a dangerous place out there. We've heard some horror stories in our own country in terms of that dynamic. Let's talk about the flip side of that coin. Alexander, you look like the cat that got the cream, man. I love the fact that I'm hearing from your mom that you guys have the opportunity to have these cool experiences together. You get time, you get mom on tap. How awesome is that? How much have you enjoyed this change in your life?
It's so fun. Like, we get to explore, go around the world, do homework wherever. I could literally be at a friend's house. Sports, could do a lot of sports.
What are you doing?
So I do, I think, tennis
Nice.
on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Nice. Are you good?
Yep.
Yeah?
So he
And you-
starts early and he gets to do things.
But, and it's your choice.
Yeah.
Is that better for you? Does it feel like this is built around you, not you fitting into someone else's
Yeah,
rules?
yeah.
I dig that, man. I absolutely love that. Is it too late to go back? Too late to go back. JJ, thanks so much for coming through. I know the whole point here is that you don't have to get up early for these sorts of things, so I'm sorry we got you out of bed early, man. But it looks like you've got some clear ideas about what you want to achieve with yourself, and sport was a massive part of my growth and development. It helped me so much. What do you want out of life, dude? What is your dream, do you think?
My dream is to become famous in soccer and like go pro, and it's really helping me because I get to focus more on soccer than school, even though I am doing schoolwork. But it is better doing homeschool.
In my own parenting journey, I love the fact that I get to redo what was kind of my experience of my childhood, which has become a massively important thing. Having the time with my kids is, because it's the one finite thing. Everything else you can stretch out. You can live to 100 now. Medicine is amazing, but those 18 years, that's all you got. Yeah. And I don't often think about it from the flip side. How nice is it to have mom on tap whenever you need her, whenever... Is that something that you've got a little bit comfortable in? How much do you enjoy being in this space?
I enjoyed it really much because it's better for me. We get to spend more time. And like when I was at school, it wasn't like that, so it is much better now.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, and I think for my business, because it's like teaching in the afternoons till late evenings, get to be there in the mornings before lunch just to give him that support structure so he can continue with the day, you know, yeah.
You got train, man. Then you can go and train, because if you want to become a pro, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
I'm understanding this. Thank you. I've had a dramatic shift in paradigm, actually, in this space now. My wife was probably sitting there going, don't even think about it, dude. Don't even think about it. But you guys are living proof that there is a different way to approach life. The fact that you did this before lockdown is amazing to me. It's actually giving me goosebumps. But you guys are getting it right.
Yes.
And I know it's a crazy world out there, so just keep doing it for each other. I think that's the most important thing, and that goes both ways, boys. You guys are there to look after mommy as much as mom's there to support you. So keep doing what you're doing, man. Oh, I love it. Don't forget about us. Don't forget us little people on the way up. This has been an unbelievably interesting conversation. Please continue to share those insights with us. If you have perspective, spread the word. What are the tips for making it work at home, and how are you getting through year-end exams? We'd love to hear from you on the socials or on our WhatsApp line, 0634088863.